Hello, my name is Bill Cope and welcome. This is going to be a very brief introduction to CGScholar. So firstly, CGScholar, or Common Ground Scholar in full, is a web application. You can simply go in and create an account and get access to a fair bit of what I'm about to show you. Not all of it, but a large amount of it. If you want to get more, you can contact us, and we actually have a licensing arrangement where you can get access to everything in CGScholar. So let's say now I go to sign in. When I do, I land on this page here in Community, which is the first of a series of apps across the top of the screen there that I'm going to run through one by one. I belong to communities here on the left, and the idea of community is it's a knowledge community. It could be a group of people working together on some particular knowledge problem, or it could be a learning community where the community is less than a class, a group within a class, or more than a class, several classes put together. So our kind of aggregating concept that brings people together for knowledge creation and learning is a community. And I don't have friends or followers. This has a kind of a social logic, social media logic to it. I have peers. Friends is a terrible idea in a space like this, which is, I gravitate towards my friends. And followers is an even worse idea. It's not a popularity contest. And down, as I scroll down the screen, there's an infinite scroll here, and I can see lots of stuff that my peers are doing, and lots of activity that's happening in my communities. I'm going to go into one of these communities now, which happens to be this one where there was a post just a little while back. This is a MOOC that we're offering through Scholar. In fact, there are 1,833 people who've at various times been working in this MOOC. These are our community admins. So the operational concepts are not teacher and student, but admin and member, because it could be teachers and students in either place. And if I go into any one of these now, I'll go into this one that happens to be at the top. What we've got here is some content that we've created and put into these short videos, in this case about the idea of metacognition. But really the idea is we want people to make a comment below. How do you relate to this? How do you feel about this idea? How does this idea connect with you? And then down below, we have a dialogue that's going on. So you can see this is not social media. This is serious, extended conversation. But it has a kind of a social media logic to it in terms of the way in which it connects you into that discussion. But the other thing we do is we actually ask you to contribute knowledge to this community. So make your own update. This is a thing called an update. So tell us about something you're doing. So we want you to be co-designers in a collaborative knowledge community, if you like. So that's our first app called Community. I'm going to go into the second app now, which is called Creator. And this is a place where you do extended pieces of work. In the old universe, it might have been called an essay or a project or something that's a little bit longer. And these are things which go through a cycle of peer review. So what I'm doing is here I am writing something here on the left. We've got a very powerful editor here where even though it's just one toolbar, you can insert images, you can insert mathematical formula, you can insert audio, you can insert video, but also you can embed external media, which might be Vimeo or YouTube or GitHub or something else that you're doing elsewhere. You can embed it in line. So we've got this multimodal editor. Now, what I'm going to do now is go to a read-only version. So when I've finished, this read-only version goes to peers for peer review. So this is, as you can see, this is a 21st century knowledge artifact. It's full of infographics. It's got videos in line. It can have all sorts of media in line, which are then folded into your argument. Now, then I have this feedback area here. Now, in fact, if I go back to the version, while I was writing, I had these review criteria, okay, which is how I'm going to be measured when my peers measure me with rating levels. Now we're getting to the peer review stage here. And to do a review, I just drag across this little slider. I think it's worth 3 out of 4. This is how I check against the rating levels. And then after it's been out to peer review, here are the results. So, this person wrote these comments. this person wrote these comments. And in fact, what happens is, even if it's anonymous, which it can be, that's a setting, you can have a dialogue with the other person where you're trying to clarify what it is that you're thinking. So these become very collaborative pieces of work. You can also do annotations. So here, here's a comment from one person, here's a comment from the same person, here's a comment from another person. So you can just highlight a section and comment on a particular section in the work as well. So what we have here is a very collaborative knowledge process. This is not possible in Google Docs even, which is this chaotic jumping cursor that goes all over the place. We keep the version against which the comments were made in order to be able to analyze the changes you made based on the comments. So there's kind of very careful version control kept in here. So we can do what's called learning analytics, which leads me into the next section of Scholar. This is this area called analytics. By the way, I skipped over Publisher. Publisher is the place where you arrange all the peer review process. So I've skipped over that. So here we have analytics, and I'm looking at a whole class now. And what we're doing is we're measuring the activity of that class by knowledge, things that they've demonstrated they've learned, focus, which is the amount of effort they've put into their work, otherwise known as resilience or grit. There are a whole lot of words for these in education, and help, which is a measure of collaboration. And as I go over each of these little petals, this thing's called an Astor plot. And by the way, 100 is my teacherly expectations. And here I'm looking at the whole group, by the way. Everybody in the group has their own Astor plot. Asters are kind of daisy, and these petals here, I can mouse over those and I can bring up information about exactly how these data analytics are measuring what I do. So in fact, my activity, which is everything I do in the class, my discussions in the community space, my peer-reviewed projects, things that I do, which are called surveys, which might be opinion surveys, or they might be item-based tests that we call knowledge surveys. So all of those things are getting measured along the way as I do my work. Now, the amazing thing about this is this was a class, this happens to be one of my classes, which ran for 8 weeks, had about 30 or 40 people in it. In fact, during those 8 weeks, in the other spaces in Scholar, there were nearly 10,500 pieces of actionable feedback. A comment made in the discussion thread, in community, an annotation made in peer review, and in fact there were 20 different types, 20-something different types of interaction that were possible. So there were that many pieces of actionable feedback, which helped me in my learning along the way. And in fact, what I'm analysing here is over 2.5 million pieces, data points are being measured. So what we're getting is a view of learning which is far more comprehensive and far more detailed than was ever possible in the era of traditional tests. And if you want me to say something a little bit provocative and a bit radical, this means it's the end of the test. We're getting so much data here, it makes old-fashioned tests look completely inadequate. They happen too late on very limited data, but here we're measuring absolutely everything. So, we say, look, this is the end of the test, but here's an irony: assessment is everywhere, which are these small cycles of actionable feedback. The last area I'm going to go into now is this area called Bookstore. We also have an area called Event, which I'm not going to discuss, which is where we can arrange in-person and online blended events, meetings, if you like, conferences. But the last area I'm going to go to is an area called Bookstore, where in fact we've published 28,000 odd peer-reviewed works of all kinds, one kind of which is an object called a learning module. So what we want to do is, in this environment, we want to do something different from e-textbooks, different from a traditional syllabus. So the learning module is a kind of a cross between a textbook and a syllabus and a lesson plan. It's all those things rolled up together. But as you'll see, in some ways, it's quite different. So I'm taking you into one now, which happens to be for grade 9, 10, fitting with the US Common Core standards, on the comedy of errors, the Shakespeare play. Very conventional area of learning, if you like, but I want to show you how this is being taught in an unconventional way. Firstly, this chunk of content on the left goes to the students. So see here, number 1, right? So when I press this button here and I select the community and I go continue, this chunk of content gets posted out into the community and it begins a discussion, because see down the bottom here, comment. This is a prompt for dialogue. We're not telling you things. This is not transmission pedagogy. This is prompting a dialogue in which you're going to contribute to the knowledge work. On the right, we have the information for the teacher, which is the action buttons which they can take and the purposes of their learning. So one type of content is this classroom discussion content that's going on here with comment, but another type of content we have is a thing called a survey. So if I click this button here, and I've already opened it here, in fact, we see something where we're asking an opinion survey. Look, are you used to online learning? So we've got all these things, radio buttons and open-ended answers and whatever. But we can also put item-based tests in here if that's what you want to do, or quizzes. They can go in there as well. So as I go down the learning module, background to Shakespeare, ideas and themes, gradually, piece by piece, we're going through this process of thinking about how you analyse Shakespeare. And each time what we do is we post that left side content of the community. Here we've got a quiz that we want to ask to see what the kids have learned. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get them in the creator space to do a peer-reviewed project. And here, when we start the project, we have a rubric we've designed around literary analysis, Shakespeare, Common Core standards for writing, all that kind of stuff. And that sets in train a peer-reviewed project. So that gives you a little bit of an introduction to the main areas of Scholar. Again, bringing you back to this analytics page, this is one of the pieces which we think is particularly pushing the boundaries of learning, pushing the boundaries of education, but also pushing the incredible capacities of online environments to revolutionize the way learning and assessment go on.